There is a psychological sickness quietly spreading across the highest levels of European football. It is not an injury crisis, and it is not a sudden loss of form. It is the realization of absolute futility. Before the referee even raises the whistle to her lips, the game is already over. The opposition knows it. The crowd knows it. Because when you step onto the pitch against FC Barcelona Femení, you aren't just playing a football match. You are stepping into a meticulously engineered illusion designed to slowly, methodically, and painfully suffocate you. Do not just look at the numbers. Understand the sheer cruelty behind them. In the modern era of the sport, parity is supposed to be increasing. The tactical gap is supposed to be closing. Instead, Barcelona has ripped a hole in the fabric of the women's game. Over a domestic span spanning 4 seasons, they didn't just win leagues. They eradicated the very concept of competition. Goal differentials that do not look like football statistics, but rather typographical errors. Plus 136, plus 158. Teams are not just losing, they are being subjected to 90-minute public execution. Back-to-back UEFA Women's Champions League titles. 4 European finals in 5 years. They have broken the will of historic, heavily funded institutions. Arsenal crushed under a wave of possession. Chelsea tactically dismantled at Stamford Bridge. Wolfsburg completely overwhelmed in a final where a 2-goal lead was swallowed whole by the Catalan machine in a matter of minutes. And at the center of this unstoppable machine is a player who has seemingly broken the algorithm of the sport itself. Aitana Bonmatí isn't just the best player on the planet. She is the terrifying central processor of a hive mind that has completely solved the geometry of a football pitch. But to understand how they became the undisputed boogeymen of world football, you have to understand the trauma that created them. Every mythological empire in history is born from the ashes of a devastating, humiliating defeat. In 2019, Barcelona were not the final bosses. They were the victims. They had finally reached their first ever Champions League final, carrying the romantic ideals of La Masia to the grandest stage, only to be thrown headfirst into a physical meat grinder by Lyon. 4 goals conceded in the first 30 minutes. 30 minutes. It was not just a defeat, it was a physical and tactical slaughter. Lyon was infinitely faster, impossibly stronger, and entirely ruthless. They bullied Barcelona off the pitch. Most clubs would shrink from that level of trauma. Most players would accept that there is a physical ceiling they simply cannot break, retreating to domestic dominance and accepting second-tier status in Europe. Barcelona did the exact opposite. They didn't just want to close the gap. They wanted to weaponize the sport so that the humiliation of Budapest would never ever happen to them again. They didn't abandon their tiki-taka DNA. They militarized it. They took the foundational philosophy of Johan Cruyff, the sacred positional play of Guardiola, and injected it with an aggressive, suffocating physicality. They hit the weight room. They increased their sprint metrics. They evolved from delicate artists into cold-blooded assassins. And in doing so, they built a tactical system so inherently unfair, it leaves opposition analysts staring at blank whiteboards in complete despair at 3 a.m. Welcome to the modern iteration of the Rondo of Death. When you play against Barcelona, you will not have the ball. That is simply an accepted reality. You will spend 70 to 80% of the match chasing shadows. But what physically and mentally breaks teams isn't the lack of possession. It's the horrific realization of what Barcelona is doing with it. Watch Aitana. Do not look at the ball. Just watch her head. She is mapping the pitch in real time. Before the ball even arrives at her feet, she has already calculated the momentum of the defender closing her down, the angle of the grass, the exact coordinate of the third-man runner, and the blind spot of the holding midfielder. It is a level of processing power that human beings are not supposed to possess. By the time you commit to tackling her, she is a ghost. She has already passed the ball to the exact zone you just vacated. She weaponizes your own defensive momentum against you. Alongside Patri Guijarro and Keira Walsh, this midfield trio creates a whirlpool of passing that drags opposing midfields completely out of position. But Aitana and the midfield are just the brain of the operation. To understand the sheer terror of this team, you have to look out wide. Focusing entirely on Aitana Bonmatí is exactly the psychological trap Barcelona sets for you. Because while your entire defensive structure is frantically shifting to contain the Ballon d'Or winner, you are completely ignoring the unseen architects of your demise. Enter Keira Walsh and Patri Guijarro. They do not sprint past you. They do not physically overpower you. They simply drown you in an ocean of flawless geometry. Walsh acts as the metronome, setting a passing tempo so relentless it actively drains the lactic acid from the opposition's legs. Guijarro is the shadow enforcer, reading the game 2 steps ahead and sweeping up loose balls before a counterattack can even materialize. Together, they orchestrate a passing network so incredibly complex, yet entirely risk-averse, that opposing midfields regularly go entire 15-minute stretches without making a single successful tackle. It is a brutal form of athletic torture. You are not just playing against 11 women, you are playing against the clock, against severe muscular fatigue, and against the inescapable reality that you simply cannot hurt what you cannot touch. And once they have completely exhausted your midfield, that is when they unleash the executioners. Graham Hansen, the ultimate cheat code. While Aitana and Keira are hypnotizing you with 1,000 short passes on the left side of the pitch, they are secretly engineering a brutal trap. They are intentionally manipulating your entire defensive block to shift over solely to create a one-on-one nightmare on the far right flank. Once Graham Hansen isolates a fullback, it is a horror movie playing out in real time. She doesn't just beat players, she takes their souls. She possesses a lethal cocktail of Norwegian power, explosive acceleration, and Brazilian street flair. You can't show her outside because she'll simply outrun you to the byline. You can't show her inside because she will break your ankles, cut to her left foot, and put it in the top corner. And if you double team her, you've just left Salma Paraluelo, a former track star with terrifying, uncatchable pace, completely unmarked in the penalty box. This is why opposing managers do not formulate game plans to beat Barcelona anymore. They formulate game plans for damage control. They pack the box with 6 defenders. They time waste from the 4th minute. They pray for a 0-0 draw and a miracle on a counterattack. They are forced to completely abandon their own club identities, their own pride, just to survive 90 minutes against the Catalan machine without being humiliated. But here is the most terrifying truth about this empire. They are no longer satisfied with just conquering the clubs of Europe. The Barcelona dynasty has officially infected the global stage. Because the spine of this unstoppable Barcelona team, Aitana, Alexia, Patri, Salma, Onabatale, they don't just wear the Blaugrana. They wear La Roja. Remember this. They already conquered the world in 2023, and they did it amidst total internal chaos. They won a World Cup while actively fighting a civil war against their own federation, with half of their best players refusing to even participate. They were fragmented, angry, and playing under a manager they despised. And they still passed the rest of the world off the pitch. So, ask yourself this one question. What are they going to do in Brazil in 2027 now that they are fully united, fully weaponized, and operating with absolute control? The United States, under Emma Hayes, is desperately trying to rebuild its physical dominance and reclaim its throne. The Lionesses are obsessed with avenging their final defeat in Sydney. The hosts, Brazil, are looking to write a fairy tale ending on home soil. They are all drawing up blueprints to stop the Spanish machine. The rest of the world is preparing for a tournament. Spain is preparing for a coronation.